So Airbnb, one of the companies that I hold in my big bets portfolio, reported earnings on Thursday. And shortly after reporting earnings on Thursday, the stock actually dipped about 3%. Since then, it has actually recovered up about 4% and it's it finished up on Friday about 1.6% up on the week, which is great. But I wanted to go over it because it's one of the companies in my holdings. It's one of the companies that I'm really, really excited about. And I just wanted to talk about some of the things that they reported on the earnings call with you guys and see what do you guys think about Airbnb, and just to get some feedback on where Airbnb is going. So if you guys don't mind, let's get this show started. All right. Whoosh. What's going on, people? It's your boy Kalechi back with another video. If this is your first time around these parts, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy anything that we'll talk about on this video, hit that like button. But anyway, let's jump right into Airbnb's earnings. There was a lot of good stuff that they actually reported in their earnings. Let's just go right to the numbers. One thing that I'm going to do with the numbers for this time around, unlike most businesses, I'm actually going to completely ignore 2020 for Airbnb, mainly because, as you know and I know, 2020 was a weird year. Like, we were all locked down. Nobody could do anything. So I'm going to basically ignore 2020 numbers. So the first thing is Airbnb nights and experience booked is back to pre-pandemic levels. Look at this. In 2019 Q2, they had 83.9 million bookings. This year, for the second quarter, they had 83.1 million bookings. But the even bigger deal from that is how much revenue was generated from even a little bit less bookings. 9.8 billion in 2019 and 13.4 billion in 2021. That is impressive. And that is mainly driven up by this number right here, $161 for average daily rates. That's what ADR stands for. For the average daily rates, up from $117.14. That is what has boosted Airbnb. Of course, they don't keep all of this $13.4 billion because they have to pay all the hosts and all that kind of stuff. So for their revenues is actually more than it was in 2019, going from 1.2 to 1.335 million dollars. That is even more impressive than all of that is the net income. Now, Airbnb is still not a profitable company, but they're kind of sitting on the verge of profitability with their net income coming in at negative just about $51 million from loss from operations. That is impressive. That is very, very good to see that Airbnb is about to be on the edge of profitability. I actually believe that if pandemic didn't happen, Airbnb would actually have been profitable when they IPO'd, which is what they were trying. I think that's what they were waiting for before they went public. But they couldn't do it because once they wanted to go public, everything went haywire and the world shut down. And so they didn't become profitable. Rather, they had to take on more debt while they were figuring out everything that they wanted to do. The other thing that's really impressive to me when I look at Airbnb's number is the cost of revenue. Look at that. For $1.3 billion in revenue, their cost of revenue is $294 million. They're a high margin business, which is just like really good. Let's just say it's really good. Like, we love Apple because Apple is a high margin business. We love software companies because they're high margin businesses. Airbnb falls into that category of being a high margin business. However, all of this stuff sounds really good, but the question that we all have to ask is, will they become profitable? Because when we go back to look at the booking numbers, this looks great, but can they keep growing? These are the questions that we as investors have to start asking ourselves, is like, oh yeah, this is all impressive. And it's good to see that they're moving in the right direction. And it's good to see that they're doing all the right things to get them to the next level. But the question is, can they still grow? Can they keep growing? And then the other question we have to ask ourselves is, when we look at this average daily rates number that went all the way from 117 to 161, is we got to ask ourselves is this sustainable? Is it possible for Airbnb to actually keep these numbers going? Like, can they keep increasing rates? Now, then again, Airbnb doesn't charge the rate. The rates are charged by their host. But can the host keep increasing those rates? I don't think so. In all honesty, like, when I look at it, I'm like, there was a lot of demand for travel and all of that good stuff. Like, a lot of people wanted to get out of their house. I mean, we talk about it over and over again over on my podcast. Go check out the podcast, the Rambling Mind podcast, by the way. But we talk about it all the time. Everybody wanted to get out of the four walls of the cave that they call a home. Everybody wanted to go somewhere else. They wanted to do all the things that they haven't been able to do for so long. So the question is, like, can this be sustainable? I don't know. Like, some people might be like, yes, it's sustainable. Like, they don't have to drop prices because inflation, And on the other side, I'm like, But competition, if the competition starts dropping their prices, there's no way that these guys aren't going to drop their prices as well. So is it possible for them to keep going at this rate? I don't know. These are the questions that as investors, we have to ask ourselves. However, there are two advantages versus competition that Airbnb has. And I just want to read a segment from the earnings report. It says that since early in the crisis, our model has proven to be inherently adaptable, with millions of hosts offering nearly all types of homes and experiences around the world. We've been able to adapt to new cases guests want, from working remotely in another home to taking longer trips with family and friends. Even with ongoing uncertainty around the pandemic, we've shown that as the world changes, our model is able to adapt. This is one of the things that Airbnb has an advantage over its competition. It's the ability to change the way that it does stuff. It's the ability for it to work with its host, which is actually the advantage that Airbnb has over other competition. Because even before we go into like talking a little bit about that, the one thing you have to notice about Airbnb, the stock is extremely expensive. Like if we go into the stock, Airbnb, when you compare it to all the other competition like Booking.com, which Booking.com is probably their most direct competition, Expedia, TripAdvisor, Airbnb's price to sales ratio, if we look at price to sales ratio for the last 12 months, 26.3, now it's 15. It is the highest compared to everybody else. Even Booking.com is already profitable, and look how expensive Airbnb is compared to them. Airbnb is an expensive stock. However, because Airbnb can easily change the way it does things, Airbnb can play into its strengths. That's one of the strengths that Airbnb has, is for it to be able to adapt. And one of the key ways that it adapts is the way it pays attention to trends. So for example, it says that the way people travel and live continue to change, even as pre-pandemic types of travel rebound. We believe many new booking trends are here to stay, including stays outside of top destinations and long-term stays. And long-term stays defined as stays at least 28 nights, aka 1 month, basically like 1 month. People are booking for an entire month. Remained our fastest growing category by trip length. Airbnb survey data indicates that people plan to continue to travel and live this way, with 81% of our long-term stay guests in Q2 2021 saying they plan to book another long-term stay in the coming year. That is what I'm talking about with the fact that Airbnb is able to work with their hosts to figure out ways to continue to adapt and change to meet the trends, not just to help their hosts make money, but also to help they themselves make money as well. I was talking to my brother the other day, and he has the ability to work from anywhere for a while for his job. And he's doing exactly what they're talking about, where he's like, I'm just going to stay in different cities for a number of weeks and just go from city to city. That's why I was thinking about investing more in Airbnb, is because we were talking and he was like, yeah, I'm just going to spend like 3 weeks in one state, 3 weeks in another state, since I have the ability to work from home, which basically means work from anywhere for a lot of people. And that's the advantage that Airbnb has compared to other people. The other thing is Airbnb is more than just about just book your thing and move on. Airbnb is about experience. One of the things I keep on thinking about, and whenever I think about businesses, I'm looking for businesses that do something special, that do something that's different from the norm. One of the things I always try to compare businesses to is like, think of Chick-fil-A. If anybody is in the United States, you know Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is a restaurant here, fast food restaurant that people love. Like, people absolutely adore Chick-fil-A. And it's not because the food is anything special. The main reason people love Chick-fil-A is the experience of going to Chick-fil-A. It's the process of you going to Chick-fil-A, how you're treated at Chick-fil-A. Airbnb is trying to put those feelings into you booking. When you book for an Airbnb, it highlights your host. It talks about how individuals are the ones that you come in contact with. Like if you book a hotel room, most of the time we don't think of the hotel room as a person. We think of the hotel as a chain. We think of the hotel as just like a McDonald's, for example. It's not like, we don't think of it as anything special. We just think of it as, yeah, it's another McDonald's. It's not a special experience. But what Airbnb does is it brings that special experience into the whole booking atmosphere, into the whole idea of what you're trying to do, into when you want to go travel. And that's one of the basic ideas of why I am so excited about investing in Airbnb, why I'm so excited about being hopefully owning this company for a long time. However, even saying all of that and being as excited and ecstatic as I am right now talking about Airbnb, they have some major headwinds coming up. one of the major ones is, I was reading this article from Axios and they talked about borders are coming back in. So Axios said, the Delta variant has killed any hope that international travel will return to anything like its pre-pandemic trajectory. One of the key things that Airbnb highlighted in their earnings was a host who's an international host who has helped many travelers come through his space. And so when I was reading this article, I was just like, oh, damn, like this is something serious. It said in the article, it says, in the decade of 2019, the number of international arrivals rose by 42% to 2.3 billion, in a trend that seems steady and unstoppable. Now, however, international borders seem to be most countries' first line of defense against the coronavirus for foreseeable future. The fastest country in pre-pandemic international tourism, for instance, was China, which has kept the virus in check by means of strict control on travel. Now that the Delta variant is the dominant form of the virus globally, there's also almost no chance for those controls being lifted anytime soon. Other Pacific Rim countries are in a similar situation. Australia, for instance, which used to be a tourist magnet. I really want to go to Australia and New Zealand. Shout out to my boy Tom. I want to go see him in New Zealand. But it's like now has one of the hardest borders in the world. It's extremely hard for non-citizens to enter and even harder for citizens to leave. New Zealand is considering allowing foreigners in the next year, probably in the first instance from other countries with very low infection rate. But even that move would be highly controversial. Vietnam currently isn't allowing inbound tourism when it starts. It will still insist on at least 7 days of centralized quarantine, enough to dissuade all but the most avid travelers. So this is a major headwind that Airbnb is facing in the short term. Can it grow these numbers? Can Airbnb actually defeat the short-term things that are happening and continue to grow these booking numbers? Because that booking number is what's going to drive its profitability, is what's going to drive the growth of this business. Because at the end of the day, this business is expensive, man. This business is extremely expensive. Look at this. This is extremely expensive. This is a very expensive business. But, you know, I like the business. I'm excited for it. But it doesn't mean that we need to be buying it at these prices because it's extremely expensive right now, in my personal opinion. I love the business, but Airbnb is already a $90 billion company. And should we be buying it at this prices? I don't know. I personally, I bought some more this morning because I was just like, I had extra $50, so I bought some $50. I'm just dollar cost averaging into it. I'm not saying like put your life savings into this thing. But you guys let me know. Am I fantasizing too much? Because sometimes when you start learning about a business, you start fantasizing and thinking of all the possible solutions and all the possibilities that the business can do, and then you forget about the reality. You guys let me know. Am I fantasizing too much and not putting enough reality into the whole mixture and seeing the big picture? But let me know. Put your comments down below. I'm gonna catch y'all up in the next time. Remember, generosity is always greater than greed. God bless each and every single one of y'all, and your boy is out of here. Peace.